guys, this video is meant as a quick guide for anyone who wants to start playing Drukhari and forgot the rules perhaps, or wants to know as much as possible before playing against Drukhari so that you have a higher chance to win. And this is not meant as a comprehensive guide. We're going to be skipping a lot of information here, only concentrating on the really important tactically stuff that can be a difference between winning and losing. And if you want to learn more about how to play Drukhari, I have a full guide on my channel. First, overview. What do you have to know about them? They are one of the fastest factions in the game. They have army-wide advance and charge after the second turn. Their move characteristic is very high, even on infantry units and especially on the transports and any fly models like Reavers and the Hellions. The faction is divided into 3 sub-factions plus mercenaries, and we'll quickly run through all of them. So Cabals are fast, shooty, and fragile outside of transport, so you mostly want to use them as your backbone that deals damage at distance and keep most of your stuff in transports until transports are gone. So for those who are playing against Drukhari, destroy those transports if you want to get rid of Drukhari shooting. At least tie them up because they can fall back and shoot, but that costs command points. Cults are faster, very good in melee, especially the characters, the succubus, but they're extremely fragile. They're even more fragile than the Cabals. Better in melee because they have a 4-up and 1 from melee attacks, but from ranged attacks they are just awful. That's where the fastest units are. The Reavers and Hellions are the fastest. Reavers have 18-inch moves, so they can go pretty much wherever they want to, and they are a perfect unit to score engage for you, to score behind enemy lines, and to tie up stuff. They are not that killing in melee. Hellions are probably a bit better in actually killing stuff in melee, and slightly less durable. The Covens now, they are very durable. They are the opposite of essentially of Cabals and Cults. They are good in melee, good in shooting, and have an average speed. They're not as fast. That's where your Grotesques are, your Talus are, and your Rex if you want numerous, tough troops. So basically that's what you're going to encounter in the middle of the board, holding the objectives. Mostly that's what you're going to be fighting against in combat, and some elements from the Witch Cult. By the way, if you like this video and want to see more content like that, please subscribe and click the notifications bell to make sure that you don't miss my next video. Now quickly through the faction traits, which you should keep in mind, you should not forget about. The Power from Pain rule and the Blade Artist rule. First, the Blade Artist, very quickly, it's just 6s to undo an extra AP in combat, so just keep that in mind. Now, Power from Pain is a different story. It's a rule that gives you a buff with each consecutive turn, and you keep all the previous ones. So here are the buffs essentially. First turn you get 6+ invulnerable save for your entire army. Second turn you get advance and charge. Third turn you get +1 to hit in melee, and for vehicles you also get no penalty for firing within engagement range. Fourth turn 5+ invulnerable save entire army, and last turn it's fearless, and you double the wounds characteristic for degradation for vehicles. As you can see, very important buffs, especially the second turn where the Drukhari can start advancing and charging, which obviously increases their threat range significantly. Cults also have a special rule called combat drags. Essentially most of their units, like their characters, their Reavers, Hellions, all of them can select one buff before the game. It can be +1 strength, +1 toughness, +1 ballistic skill, weapon skill, so on and so forth. A couple of things. They retain this one buff they selected for the entire game. You can select all the same ones, or you can select different ones depending on the role that you presume the unit will fill out. Cabal, Cult, and Coven each select their own trait. It's called an obsession, and the best obsessions, in my opinion, are first for Cabals, it's the Cabal of the Black Heart. It gives you 1 reroll to hit in each activation, combat and shooting, +1 leadership for your entire army, which can be important for some bigger units, and also you count 1 turn higher in Power from Pain, so your Cabal units can advance and charge from the first turn, and from the second turn they will get +1 to hit in melee. Also, Cabal of the Black Heart has an awesome strat, 0 command points, so it doesn't cost you anything, you just use it every time, and you essentially pick an enemy stratagem, and that stratagem will cost extra command point each time that your opponent uses it in the game, starting from the second time. Next, Cult of Strife. I think that's the best one because you get a lot of good melee buffs and a lot of good stratagems from the supplement. So the Cult of Strife gives you a fight first and also +1 to charge if you're charging an enemy unit that doesn't have any of your friendly units in engagement range with it. Also, wonderful wallet trait for the melee succubus, Competitive Edge, which essentially allows you to reroll all your failed attacks that did not reach the inflict damage step. In terms of comments, I think Artist of Flesh are the best coven you have, because they give you -1 damage for all attacks that are less than strength 8, and the close second place is Prophets of Flesh, because you also get the Vexator Mask relic, which is fight last debuff relic and also no Overwatch relic. That's a very good combination, so both Artists of Flesh and Prophets of Flesh are a good choice. I really like the -1 damage buff, especially for our 4 wound grow tasks. Killing them with 2 attacks with a damage 2 power sword, or killing them with 4 attacks with damage 2 power sword, considering that they also have 6+ or even 5+ invulnerable save and 5-up shrug. That's a very big difference. Now quickly through the stratagems that I think you really need to know. First, the 5 strats that I think you must know. It's lightning fast reactions, -1 to hit for 1 command point for your infantry, vehicle, and biker. Just essentially you target their Drukhari unit and they can -1 to hit you. Second is never stationary for 2 command points. It's a 7-inch move after shooting. Very good for Drukhari shooty raider with the true board inside. Very strong because you're essentially moving your big asset away from harm. You can also put it on the objective, for example. You can also move forward if the situation allows. You can only not charge after that. So very strong strategy. Third is Cruel Deception. 1 to 2 command points. You can charge and shoot, or shoot after falling back, depending on how many command points you spend. If you spend 2, you can do both. If you spend 1, you must choose. And that's very, very strong, especially in a clutch moment where you really need to re-engage with some other unit. Fourth is No Method of Death Beyond Our Grasp. Very strong. It's fight again with a Cult of Strife witches, so it's only for Cult of Strife. Obviously, it's only relevant if you are running a 10-man blob or a 20-man blob, but if you are playing against that, I really think you should know that, because sometimes you might expect that your unit will survive and your decisions will depend upon that, but in the end of the fight phase, your opponent will just spend 2 command points and kill the unit outright or finish it off. Fifth is Flawless Approach for 1 command point. Very, very important to know, especially if you're playing against Drukhari, that they can block your Overwatch if they want to with a Cult of Strife unit. That's very strong. It must be an infantry charging, but it can be a character, it can be an infantry unit, anything. And if you expect to spend that 1 command point and pour just hundreds of bolter shots into an incoming succubus, that might be a problem. In terms of other strats I would recommend to keep in mind, it's Swift Outflanking. It's Drukhari Transport can go into reserves if it's within 9 inches of the battlefield edge at the end of the movement phase. Keep that in mind if you really want to kill something in that transport and then it vanishes suddenly out of the blue. That's how it can happen. Also, Murderous Descent, you can disembark from a transport after arriving from reinforcements, so these can be used in a combination. Problem with this one, why it's not important red stratagem, is because you still arrive within 9 inches of the opponent, and even though 9 inches is doable, it's still unlikely to go off the charge. So yes, your opponent can outflank you like that. They can put something dangerous in your lines, but it will still be a 9-inch charge. Next, units to keep in mind. It's important both for you if you're playing against Drukhari. These are the guys that you really want to keep at bay, and if you want to run Drukhari, these are the units that I recommend you to have. So Succubus, that's the very important one. It's the best combo probably in the entire book. Triptych Whip and Competitive Edge Warlord trait, so you get a lot of damage to attacks that wound almost anything on 2s, and those attacks will get another chance to inflict damage on your unit if they fail the first time. The worst part about that Succubus is the Shell Stealer upgrade for I think 15 points. It gives you a 6-inch unrestricted consolidation, essentially allowing you to run away after fighting. The way to prevent that is if you lock that Succubus in with your other unit, but that's pretty impossible if the opponent is fighting first. So if they're careful, they're just not touching your base, and they fight first with that Succubus, not giving you a chance to fight first or to interrupt, then it's almost impossible to catch her. Next, Raiders, Ravagers, and Trueborn. These are the shootiest units of the Drukhari. They are very dangerous with the Black Heart reroll. They all have strength 8, AP 4, damage D3+3, or in case of the Blaster, D6 damage, but still very dangerous shooting. And it's very accurate, very reliable, reliable, so keep that in mind, tie that up as fast as possible, or just use it if you're playing Drukhari. Talos is a great distraction unit that can do a lot in combat under certain circumstances, especially if you use the Torturous Craft strat for full rerolls to wound, and are generally tough to kill, especially with the buffs on Prophets or Artist of Flesh. Grow tasks, essentially the same thing, but no shooting and more combat, probably. They are toughness 5, 4 wounds each, relatively fast, and can do a lot of mortal wounds with their flash gauntlets in combat. And the Court of Archon, a very unusual unit, but it's super tough for the price. Pretty decent in combat, they dish out a ton of attacks, and Archon with Gene Blade behind their back is also dangerous, especially with the Ancient Evil Warlord trait, which allows the Archon to pick an enemy unit and make it fight last. Drajar, very dangerous in combat with full rerolls to hit and wound, and he's also tough. That's probably the two auto takes in any Drukhari list. Drajar with the Hatred Eternal Warlord trait, and Succubus with the Triptych Whip and Competitive Edge. Keep the Drajar in mind because he's gonna do a lot of damage with those damage 3 attacks. Incubi, fragile, but they can hit very, very hard, especially against targets that don't have -1 damage, and they also have a free chance to fight last an enemy unit in engagement range if they roll over their leadership, so essentially scare you to death. And lastly, Reavers and Helmets, we already talked about those. They are very, very fast, and keep them in mind because they will be scoring a lot of points for a Drukhari player, or again, if you're playing Drukhari, that's what's gonna score you points and tie up enemy units. Lastly, secondaries and playing the mission. The Drukhari are very good at doing both behind enemy lines and engage for obvious reasons. They have a lot of cheap units and they're very fast. They also have the herd the prey in the category, but clearing quarters is much more difficult than staying in them, so I don't recommend this one. Horde, which is a mainstay against psychic heavy armies. Obviously now it's in the purge the enemy category, so it depends on how many characters they have, how many psychers they actually have, but probably you are better off with a Horde, which if you're playing against Grey Knights or Thousand Suns. Take them alive is a good one because it's more versatile than Assassination or Bring It Down, giving you points for killing anything in melee, especially characters and monsters. Unless you're playing a very, very shooty Drukhari list where you don't want to limit yourself only to killing stuff in melee, so Bring It Down may be a better choice. Fear and Terror is good when you have a lot of Grizzly trophies on your vehicles and play against an infantry heavy force, especially with low leadership like Imperial Guard, for example. But other than that, a very niche secondary. All in all, combination of tough, durable melee units with fight lasts to hold highly contested objectives and extremely fast, cheap units to reach far-off objectives means that beating Drukhari in the primary game is going to be very difficult. If you're playing against Drukhari, what's on your side is that the fast units are also very fragile, so if your opponent is not careful, they will be caught out and it's relatively easy to deal with them. Whereas the durable units are not that durable. They're not like Chaos Space Marine Terminator Blob durable. They're just relatively hard to kill. This was the new quick Drukhari review. I will be making these for other factions as well, so leave your opinion in the comment section below if you like this format. If you don't like, if you have any suggestions, I'm always happy to change something. And thank you for watching. Please subscribe and I'll see you next time.